Hey everybody, Conor here today at etrailer.com. Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the etrailer invisible base plate kit here on our 2021 Jeep Gladiator. So this is what our base plate kit is going to look like installed. As you can see here, we have a nice, clean, sleek design. We don't have the arms in right now, which is another nice feature about this base plate kit, is that it has a removable arm design. Meaning we're not going to have anything in the actual tabs for our base plate kits while we're driving around town. We also have these nice little plugs to put in place to keep any dirt and debris out of the hole for our base plates. So our base plates here, they have a nice powder coated black finish. It's going to help with any rust issues. On the side here, we also have the tabs for our safety cables. We have one on either side here. So along with our base plate kit, we're going to get this electrical bracket, which you can see here. This is going to be used obviously to mount our electrical connector that we have in the center, but we also have sort of a dual purpose for that, meaning we have a couple extra holes here to mount our breakaway switch as well. It's going to give us a nice clean finished install look with everything integrated into one mount. So something unique about the etrailer base plate kit you may not be familiar with if you've had experience with products such as Roadmaster or Blue Ox. So the arms, or tabs rather, they get inserted into the base plate kit. These are actually going to be attached to our tow bar. Therefore, it's one less thing we're going to have to keep track of and install each time. It's super easy to use. They're already going to be on our tow bar, as we said. So once we have our tow bar attached to our motorhome here, we're simply going to rotate the arms over. We'll remove our caps, then we can go ahead and insert the arms here. Before we do that, we want to make sure our tab here is going to be facing this way. Then we're going to push all the way in and then turn to rotate to lock in place, and we'll follow that up with our safety pin here. We'll just repeat that same process on the other side. So now that we have both of our arms locked in place, you can see they're not going anywhere. The only thing else we really need to do is hook up our safety cables. We obviously attach our electrical connector as well as the breakaway switch, but that's it. We're pretty much ready to hit the road. So in regards to installation, this one is definitely one that you can do at home by yourself. We really don't need any special tools, and there are really no modifications needed to the vehicle, for the exception of cutting or trimming the plastic skid shield. So generally speaking, base plates are going to be more involved on the install scale, but the one we have here for our Jeep is actually pretty easy. So again, I definitely encourage you guys to try this one yourself. So two takeaways of the etrailer base plate that are sort of unique to this particular application. Number one, we talked about the ends being installed onto the arms of our tow bar. And number two is, because we're installing these ends on the tow bars, we can actually use this base plate kit here with several different tow bars, including those from Roadmaster, Demco, of course our etrailer brand, Roadmaster as well. Therefore, no matter which tow bar you have, you should be able to use them with this base plate kit here. Keep in mind, adapters may or may not be required for your tow bar, so be sure to check out our product page to see if that's the case. So now that we've gone over some of the benefits and features of our base plate kit here, let's go ahead and jump into that installation so we can show you how it's done. So the first step of our installation today, we want to come to the front of our Jeep here. We're going to be going to the top of our bumper here, directly in front of the grille. What we see when we look in here, we're going to see two plastic push pin fasteners, one on either side. We have one here, and then we have one in the same location on the other side. We need to go ahead and remove these fasteners here. In order to do that, there's going to be a center section here along with an outer section. You can see these little divots in here. What we're going to do is just get one of our pick tools in here. We're just going to pry that center section up. Once we do that, we should be able to release the bottom section as well, removing the fastener entirely. Here's what that looks like when we have it out. Let's go ahead and repeat that same process on the other side. So once we get our two push pin fasteners from the top of the bumper, we're going to come underneath here to our skid shield. If we take a look at the top of our skid shield where it actually attaches to the bumper, right up in here we're going to have several more, 8 to be exact, of the same type of push pin fasteners. What we need to do is We're going to remove them the same way we remove the other ones. I'm going to take a little pick tool here, just going to pry down the center section. Once we have that center section out, we should be able to remove the fastener the rest of the way just like that. We're going to have 7 more here on the inside between our bumper and the top of our skid shield. So we'll go ahead and get those all out now. Now we're going to take an 8mm socket. We come on the bottom side of our skid shield here. We're going to have 2 screws, one on either side. We need to remove both of those, and once we do so, we should be able to actually remove our entire skid shield here. We'll go ahead and set this aside. We're actually going to be removing our main bumper here. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have 4 nuts on either side. We're going to have 2 on the outside of the frame, 2 on the inside of the frame, and again, mirrored on the same side. So there's going to be studs on the back of our bumper. It's going to be kind of hard to show you because space is going to be limited back there. But we're going to have some studs from the back of our bumper. Again, 4 on either side, 2 on the outside of the frame, 2 on the inside of the frame. And basically, there's going to be a flange on the front of the vehicle and the frame where the nuts secure the bumper to our vehicle. So what we need to do is we need to take an 18mm socket. We're going to go to the back side of our bumper here. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to break free all 8 of those nuts. And then I can come back with our impact and get them the rest of the way out. So let's go ahead and do that now. Go ahead and get our socket on there. We can begin removing them. So before we're ready to pull our bumper off, we actually need to do one more thing. If we come inside to the passenger side frame rail here, you look inside, we're going to see a connector, which is going to be for our fog lights. That's actually going to attach to the bumper, so we need to go ahead and remove that before we take off the bumper. I'm going to come on the inside here with a little trim panel tool, just so I can pry that connector free, and then I can separate the 2 ends. Once you have that out, we should be able to depress this tab here on the back side, and we should be able to separate the 2 connectors. It's going to be that tab right here. Now we have it loose, we can go ahead and remove our bumper. We can go ahead and just set this aside. So now we're going to come to the outside here of our frame rail. We're going to see our bumper support brackets, which are held in place with this bolt here. We've already went ahead and loosened them for you, but it's going to be a 16mm socket. It's going to be one of these brackets on either side, the same bolt holding them on both sides. We'll go ahead and remove that now. We'll go ahead and take out our bolt and set this aside. We'll remove the other side as well. So now we're going to take the washers that come with our kit here. We're going to have 4 of these washers. What we're going to do is we're going to line them with the holes on the flange for the bumper that we just removed, just like so. And in order to hold them in place, we're going to be using some tape here. We're actually going to be using some masking tape, but really anything you have will work. Some painter's tape, masking tape, duct tape, really whatever you have on hand. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and align our washers here. We want to make sure we get them centered in the hole. That's going to be the most important thing here. Once we have that done, we can go ahead and tape them in place so they don't move. Now we'll just go ahead and repeat this for our other 3 washers. Once we get them where we want them, we'll go ahead, we're just going to take a razor blade here, we're just going to puncture that center section to allow our bolt to pass through. Now that we have our washers taped up, what we're going to do is we're going to take the factory bolts, the ones we just removed from the outside of our frame here. We're going to do this on both sides, but we're going to go ahead and apply some of the blue Loctite that comes in our kit, just like that. We're going to be prepping these bolts because in the next step, we're going to be taking the base plate, setting it on the vehicle, securing it using these 2 bolts. Now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and take our base plate kit here. We're actually going to come up around the back side of our flange here. And then we're going to align the hole here with the hole in our frame. Just get a couple threads now to hold it in place. So now we can go ahead, use our 16mm socket. We're going to go ahead and tighten down these 2 bolts here that we just reinserted. However, we want to come to the front of our base plate kit here because we need to make sure that we hold the base plate so everything's going to be aligned in our holes there. We don't want the base plate kit sticking in and down through any of these holes. So when we reinstall our bumper, we want to be able to slide the studs through there without any interference. So we're going to hold it in place and tighten our bolt at the same time. So once we have our 2 bolts on top, we just have them snug down. They're not fully tightened, so we can still maneuver our base plate here. We're going to go ahead and use our serrated bolt here that comes with our kit, along with our nut strip. We're going to have this hole here on the bottom of our base plates, and there's actually going to be a hole that can go through the frame here. Now, sometimes we do have to grind some of the material out of that hole to get our bolt to fit through, but we've already go ahead and done some test fitting here. And with a little bit of maneuvering, we are able to get our bolt through without taking any of the material away. Now we'll go ahead and remove it. We're going to apply some of our blue Loctite that comes in our kit to the threads on our bolt. And on the bottom of our frame here, we're going to have an opening that we can insert our nut strip into. And basically what we're going to do is we want the back side of this nut strip to be flush with the hole in our frame there. So it's a little tricky to get it up in there, but with a little bit of patience, it's certainly doable. Once we have it started there, we're going to take a 19mm socket, and I'm just going to use a socket by hand just to snug it up. We don't need to tighten anything down super tight right now because we still have to do the same process on the other side. And then we'll go ahead and line up our holes here, and then we can tighten everything down. So let's go ahead and repeat the same process we did here on the other side. So now we're going to take our 19 and 16mm sockets. We're just going to go ahead and snug up these 2 bolts here, making sure that we have everything aligned here at the front with our flange and our base plate. Once we have them snugged up on both sides, we'll come back down with our torque wrench and make sure everything is to spec. So the next thing we're going to do, once we have all of our hardware torqued down, we're going to go ahead and take our safety cables along with our quick links. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and wrap this around the frame of the vehicle along with our base plates. Now, we don't have any specific instructions for this, but essentially just what we need to do is we're going to come around to the back side here, just feed our cable like that. We're actually going to need to make 2 loops, so I'm going to hold that tight. I'm going to bring the other connection around here, but we want our connection to come out at the front, so you may need to adjust the slack on the cables. As you can see here, at the front we have both of the ends of our safety chain, or safety cable here, and I'm just going to take our quick link here, comes in our kit, just go ahead and make our connection. We can just go ahead and tighten down this here with a crescent wrench. So this is pretty much what it's going to look like. If you have a different path you want to take, that's perfectly fine as well. We just need it to be wrapped around the base plate kit here, as well as the frame on our vehicle. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our plastic skid shield that we removed previously. We're going to flip it around. You can see here we already have some tape, because what we need to do is we need to go ahead and mark our outlines here. So on this side, this is pretty much what it's going to look like once you get all your measurements. We're using some masking tape. We're just going to cut out this area here, but we'll show you how we got there. Basically, what you want to do is there's going to be 2 divots here. They're going to be even on either side here. This is going to be the center line for all of our measurements. So the center of this is where we're going to be taking our measurements from. What we need to do next is we need to measure 1 7/8 inches down from this top flange here that comes out, which is pretty much going to bring us to the bottom of this little indentation here. So what we need to do is we need to measure a little bit inward. We're going to be measuring 2 inches inward, and then we're going to be measuring 3.5 inches outward for a total of 5.5 inches. So once I have my marks here, I went ahead and I put a piece of tape here on the outside here so I know how far I need to cut. And now I'm actually going to put another piece of tape to go across the top. So we see I have my line here. Just want to make sure that I line everything up with that. just like that. Now we need to make one more measurement, which is we need to come down 3 inches. So we'll get our tape measure here. And we'll measure roughly 3 inches. Once I have my mark made there, you can see my little yellow dot. I'll take another piece of painter's tape and I'll line it up with that. That's pretty much how I get to this cutout size. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm actually going to take a Dremel tool. There's a couple different ways we can cut this out depending on whether or not you have one of those. That'll probably be ideal, but if you have some razor blade, you can probably score this plastic enough to break free, or if you have some tin snips, it might be a little bit hard to get in there at first, but we should be able to get it out with those. So let's go ahead and cut it out now. I will say, in order to get the correct corners, we're going to be taking a drill bit. We're going to be drilling out each of the 4 corners here. We'll show you that now. So we'll just put it in the center here, try to get it lined up as best as we can. Let's go ahead and drill through. We'll just go ahead and repeat that process on all 4 corners on both sides. So now we can come back with our Dremel tool now. We can go ahead and cut out our openings. So that'll pretty much show you what it looks like once we have our cutout made. So you can see here we have all these rough edges. We're going to come back with a file or a metal blade. We can go ahead and just clean that up. Once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and just repeat that same process on the other side. So this is what our skid shield should look like. We have both of our cutouts made. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our skid shield here. We're actually going to reattach it to our factory bumper before we put everything back on the vehicle. So now we'll take our skid shield here, come over to our bumper. We're going to see we have some alignment tabs here, which are going to line up with some holes we have in the metal part of the bumper. Once we have the skid shield lined up, we can go ahead and take our push pin fasteners here, just reinstall them to hold it onto our bumper. So now we can go ahead and take our bumper and set it back up onto the vehicle. So now we can go ahead and reinstall everything in the reverse order that we took it off. Don't forget, on the passenger side, we do have our electrical connector here. So now, if you remember from earlier, we're going to have 2 screws here at the bottom holding our skid shield to some support brackets behind here. However, because of the base plates, our skid shield is going to be angled downward a little further than what we were from the factory. So what we need to do is, these brackets here, the support brackets, we're simply going to take a pair of vice grips, channel locks, really whatever you have, and we're just going to bend those brackets down slightly to make less stress on the connection for the skid shield. So we just need to bend that down just a little bit like so. We'll go ahead and repeat that process on the other side, and then we should be able to reattach our screw for our skid shield. Once we have our brackets bent, we can go ahead, take our screw here with our 8mm socket. We should be able to secure the skid shield. So now we're going to take our plastic push pin fasteners. Don't forget, we have one on the either side. We'll just reinsert those. So the next thing we're going to do, in the final step of our installation really, we're going to take the ends that actually get installed onto our tow bar. These do come with our base plate kit though. So we're going to get a hardware bag with our kit that comes with various washers, nuts, and bolts. Now the exact washers, nuts, and bolts, the exact hardware we're going to be using is going to be dependent on what tow bar we have, because our base plate kit here is compatible with multiple different tow bars. So just make sure you pay attention to this in the instructions when you're installing it on your tow bar. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the eTrailer Invisible Base Plate Kit here on our 2021 Jeep Gladiator.